is a Laker maniac, and he is the Archbishop of the Bronze Sexuals. Welcome back to Prince and Barty.
Welcome back to episode 125 of the Prince and Barty podcast. Man, we apologize for being gone, but we had to live life, vacation, birthday just passed, so we're back, man. We're not going to leave y'all again. We know we saw the texts, we saw the DMs. Football season is back and in full swing. What's going on, brother? How you been?
Man, I'm excited, man. And this when we talk about the Barty report, this is what we be talking about. Football is less than 24 hours away, and I'm super stoked.
Let's do it, man, but let's get right to it. We had one of the GOATs, man. One of the GOATs has gone back to college and is trying to coach young men. A lot of people thought he was bugging, just ride off into the sunset with your Super Bowl rings. We're talking about the great Bill Belichick. He made his North Carolina Tar Heels college football debut this past weekend, and he struggled, man. They lost at TCU 48-14. But, Michael Jordan was there. Lawrence Taylor was there. Mia Hamm, the soccer player, countless other celebrities were there to see Bill get blown out, essentially, right? So when you look at Bill Belichick, I know a lot of people talked about this, but for me, the bigger story is, will it work? And when I say will it work, is it a championship situation? Because it's only three coaches in history to win in the NFL and college. Barry Switzer with the Cowboys in Oklahoma, right? Then you got Pete Carroll, USC in Seattle. And who's the other person? Jimmy Johnson and Dallas Cowboys. So what do you think about Bill Belichick, his young girlfriend, the pressure, all that's around him right now?
Belichick's in a midlife crisis, man. He and he's actually past his midlife, but you know what I mean. I think that he's in a situation where he wants to prove that he can win on all levels. Is he a great coach? But even Prime had to learn that himself because we see how good he is for Colorado, and that still is nothing compared to the best teams. They're not a playoff team. They just a good team. And they went up against TCU. TCU is a regular playoff team. So to have expectations for Bill to make North Carolina, which has never really been a great football program, they've been basically average. Now you throw him in there and you think that he automatically is just going to translate. It's going to take some time. You're going to a lot. You have to remember too, a college coach is a little bit more understanding to his players because he knows what his players are and what they can do. And most of these guys are not. So this is unfortunate. But I mean, when you look at Belichick and what kind of coach he is and what he stands for, he's a great coach. But to translate it to coaching, these are teenagers and young men, 20-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 21-year-olds. Uh, you know, it's gonna take time. It took time for the Patriots to buy into his system. It took time for Cleveland to buy into his system. It even took time when he was a coordinator in the Giants for them to buy into his system. So this is gonna take a lot of time. So, I mean, I don't judge him too quickly off the first game, but you look at TCU. TCU has always been a playoff team. So for them to play them, now you get to see kind of what he looks like. But I think he'll get a grade from me when the season is over.
Nah, I agree with you, man. I think it's too early to judge. He's a great coach. And, college is hard, man. Obviously, the pros are hard, but I think look at Dion with Colorado. He had a Heisman Trophy winner and, probably the top five quarterback in the nation. And they only won, what, 9 games?
That's right.
You know what I mean? So there's no guarantees. And I don't know, I'm sure as we go on, we'll learn more about the roster he has over there in North Carolina. But I don't know what blue chip players he has to even compete realistically. I know he's the name in the draw, but I don't know much about the players, just to be honest. Salute to Julius Peppers too. He was out there. We met him. Uh, But let's go. Let's do something called buying or selling, man. So we're still buying Bill Belichick stock. We're not giving up yet. Let's go to Arch Manning. I don't think there's been a quarterback prospect this hype in a long time, man. Obviously, he's from that Manning lineage, that the great Manning bloodline. So Art struggled. He only threw 170 yards against Ohio State for 170 yards, one interception. They pretty much shut him down the first three quarters. Ohio State, that's a national champ. You're not going against, you know, a D3 school. Do you think there was also a quote saying that Arch is the best quarterback since Tim Tebow? I'm like, they're putting crazy pressure on this young man's shoulders from who he is, who his family is. What do you think Arch Manning's ceiling is? Can he live up to all the hype around his name?
I think he can, but now when we say the greatest quarterback since Tim Tebow was a great college quarterback. He wasn't a great pro quarterback. And when you look at the trajectory of the trajectory of the Mannings is Eli was good in college, but he was great in the NFL. Manning was very, very good in college, but he was great in the NFL, as well as their father, Archie Manning. So now you look at Arch, and he's coming in and what he's about to do. I think that these type of quarterbacks do not define themselves in college. They define themselves in the pros. So I think he's pro ready. I think that he's going to have a better career. And I know this is saying a lot than Cam Ward. Cam Ward is a beast, but I think that Arch is going to be in a better situation long term when he makes the NFL. I don't know. It's just a feeling that I have. And then the backing that I have for him as well. To see what happened versus Ohio State, listen, these things happen. He had a bad game. I think a lot of times when people have a bad game, we overreact. Like, okay, perfect example, Patrick Mahomes. He had a bad Super Bowl. Does that not mean that he's not the GOAT right now? No, that doesn't mean that. That just means he had a bad game. So I know a lot of people when you see a bad game, immediately you think it's a volcano, you think it's an earthquake, you think it's a hurricane, but it's not. It's just one bad day. The guy had a bad day. He gets spell money. I mean, we've seen him in bigger games in the past in college, and we'll see him in bigger games in college. Don't even be surprised if he still becomes a playoff team because we're talking about Arch Manning, right? Right now, we cannot name three quarterbacks in college football is better than him. So I think that I'm buying the stock of Arch Manning.
All right, Sailor. Now I feel you, man. I think where in a social media news, just 24/7 news cycle that you do good, you're the GOAT. You do bad, you're not. So it's just sports has become like a seesaw up and down, just how it's covered, period, from when we kind of first played sports and became fans. It's a lot of pressure on these young dudes to be real, man. But let's leave reality and go to fantasy, man.
He is averaging 26, 8, and 9.
Can he live up to all the hype? No one can live up to this type of hype.
Now, it's time for the Prince and Barty Fantasy Talk. What you got for him, fellas?
Salute to all the fantasy commissioners out there. I know a lot of my coworkers, a lot of my boys' family, they had their fantasy drafts this past week. Talk to me about fantasy this year, man. What makes fantasy for Barty different this year than years past? It feels like a lot more people are excited about it, involved in it. You got some casual fantasy players. So what do you think about fantasy as a whole and looking forward to this season?
Well, for one, you got a lot of big name rookies. You got a lot of upside players who are coming out. So everybody gets excited. And fantasy for the average man is taking his mind off of what's going on in his real life. A lot of people who play fantasy, they enjoy it so much because everyone thinks that they're Bill Belichick when it comes to fantasy football. Everybody feels like I can put together the best squad. Doesn't matter where I draft. I'm gonna put together a good squad. I mean, with my first league that I was in, the Yahoo Gauntlet, Prince and Barty Gauntlet that we got going, I drafted six. And when you look at the power rankings, because they give the power rankings after the draft, and then if you have a shout out to Fantasy Pros, Fantasy Pros is an app that literally see that's the thing. The real fantasy users knows about Fantasy Pros. Fantasy Pros is actually I would say it's a cheat code where you can use it, and it's not necessarily a cheat code, but it's like a playbook. So you basically put your players in a playbook, and it kind of shows you how you're supposed to run them or when you're supposed to play them. When in the Prince and Barty Gauntlet, I've drafted 6, and I got the best team. That's what the gauntlet says as far as going into the season. My squad is the best squad because I'm well rounded. Now, in the Goodfellas fantasy league, I drafted 9th, and I'm ranked 8th. And you know me, I don't like to be in. I used to be that cat that used to be in like 4 and 5 leagues. I'm only in 2 leagues this year: the Goodfellas League and the Prince and Barney League, of course, which I am the admin. I run that league. So for the most part, it's exciting just from the standpoint of bragging rights. It's exciting because some leagues have different rules. There are some leagues that the loser has to get a tattoo of the championship's liking. There's other leagues that when you win, you get a ring or a championship belt. But for the most part, it's just a time where everybody can talk a whole bunch of junk, man. People could talk junk to each other and you could back it up. Win, lose, or draw, you could back it up. So it's definitely this time of year, everybody's excited. I think a lot of people are excited too from the standpoint of they believe that certain teams are just gonna go off this year. They believe that. You know, a lot of people are writing off the Kansas City Chiefs. So everybody is drafting everything but Kansas City. Like this is the lowest I've seen Travis Kelsey be picked. This is the lowest I've seen Patrick Mahomes get picked. And to me, I feel like that's kind of stupid. But this is what you got when you're the champ. Everybody's gearing up for you. And so basically, as we know, even though Philly won the championship, everybody's still hating on the Chiefs.
No, I agree, man. I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm definitely looking forward to that fantasy. So we just have to just figure out a way to just make it bigger and better every day from Prince Barty's standpoint. So just stay tuned. It's gonna keep prize is gonna keep getting bigger and better. But when you look at fantasy, man, a lot of all the holdouts got re-signed or traded. Terry got re-signed with the Commanders. Hendrickson is back with the Bengals, and obviously Micah got traded to Green Bay, and Dallas got some first round picks and a defensive tackle. Out of all those teams who made changes or re-signed their player, who do you think that player is going to be more effective, the most effective? Is it going to be the Bengals with Trey? Is it going to be Terry with the Commanders or Green Bay now, with Micah?
Well, I'll go down the line. The Bengals going to need a major year from Hendrickson because they could not make the playoffs strictly on the fact of their defense. And Hendrickson was the number 1 sacker. So we need a year like Michael Strahan, where you're going to have to baby break the sack record to make them a playoff team. We look at the Bengals offense. Chase Brown is a middle of the pack running back. Joe Burrows is a top 5, top 7 quarterback. You got the number 1 receiver in football, and then your number 2 receiver could be a top 10 receiver. So you have no excuses. Um, Even though they signed him back, I still think that it's still more of the same. It's like putting mayonnaise on a sandwich. It's still more of the same. When you look at the standpoint of Terry McLaurin, I think the sophomore slump is going to happen for Jaden Daniels. The NFL is not called not for long for no reason. And the funny thing in the world is, remember, C.J. Stroud, his first year, he did similar things to what Jaden Daniels did. Now everybody wants to say, well, Jaden Daniels went to the NFC Championship, but let's call a spade a spade. The NFC is the weaker conference. When Philly made the move for Saquon, Philly always was going to the Super Bowl. It was either them or the San Francisco 49ers. When we look at the last 4 Super Bowls, it's been 2 teams to go, either the Niners or the Eagles. So when you look at that, the NFC is the weaker conference. So CJ Stroud and Jordan Love, all these guys had a letdown year for their sophomore slump. So I think that the NFC East is going to be ready for Jaden Daniels and for Terry McLaurin. Now, the biggest move, I would say, is what Green Bay did. Green Bay already had an explosive offense. Green Bay already had a great structured defense. They got Edgerrin Cooper. They have great safeties. They have a decent D line. Of course, they got rid of their interior in Clark. Kenny Clark is now on the Dallas Cowboys. And people don't realize Kenny Clark going to the Cowboys is a big move for the Cowboys as far as most defenses get better when you have a good anchor in the middle. They just did the same thing that the Rams did with Aaron Donald. Now, Kenny Clark is not on the level of Aaron Donald, but he anchors the middle of the defense. So that's good for the Cowboys. But to add Michael Parsons, they always needed an edge rusher. We're talking about a top 3 edge rusher in the league. You got Myles Garrett, you can say Aiden Hutchinson, you could even say TJ Watt. But Micah's in the top 5 echelon. For him to go to Green Bay, it it moves Green Bay to a middle of the pack team in the NFL to a top 6 team in the NFL. They might be top 5, top 6. I can't put them over Kansas City because Kansas City is still in my top 5, but they're top 16. So I think this has moved the trajectory. I think that now when the Eagles face the Green Bay Packers, it's not going to be, and even last year they only won by 8 points. We're looking at a field goal game, maybe even 2, 3 points with Green Bay and the Philadelphia Eagles.
Say less, man. Like I wanted to talk to you about the Cowboy side of it, right? I don't know what's going on in Dallas where they trade away their beloved stars. We saw that with Luca going to the Lakers and now Micah going to Green Bay. Obviously when you remove emotions from it all and you just look at it from a business standpoint, both teams, Dallas and the Mavericks, Cowboys and the Mavericks did the right thing in terms of I think Dallas could have got a lot more back. Both of the Cowboys and Mavericks could have got a lot more back, right? But you free up money, you sign. What's my guy's name? The corner they just signed because there's money now.
You talking about Bland?
They re-signed Bland. He's a baller for them. So the money kind of got spread around versus going to one person. Do you think that's kind of the new trend with ownership, where if they're gonna look at your analytics. Hey, you can't stop the run. What do we last at? Stopping the run. So why am I giving you generational money, right? Just from a business standpoint, do you think owners and GMs is kind of looking at the deficiencies of certain players? Luka don't play defense, and kind of making a decision from there and moving on quicker than they normally would.
I think this was. I think Luca had more to do with him being a defensive liability, and I think Micah had more to do with Jerry Jones being in his feelings. You look at Dave Melagetta, the agent. There was never a connection between him and Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones doesn't like to deal with the agent. He likes to deal with the player because he kind of thinks that he is the father of these players. You Everybody's different. You got to show people the respect just due to them. And so you want to deal with Micah, but Micah wants you to deal with his agent. Yes, Micah is a run stopping defensive liability. 100% he is. He's not Reggie White. He's not Lawrence Taylor. These guys knew how to stop the run. But in the era that we're in now, they always say it. The 3 positions that you should always secure is a quarterback, a left tackle, and an edge rusher. Quarterback, a left tackle, and an edge rusher. When you look at these teams, even the Pittsburgh Steelers, we look at the Steelers, they may not be a great team, but they're still secure because of TJ Watt. Now, Cleveland, on the other hand, is a different story because they're just in total disarray. They have nothing but Miles Garrett. But in most cases, when you have that edge rusher, you secure yourself as a playoff berth or as a team. I think that to see what he's been doing, the double figure sacks, he's averaging 12 sacks a season for 4 years. They should have gotten him that contract. They put so much emphasis on getting George Pickens. I think that was their mistake, not getting rid of Micah. George Pickens is nice, and he's going to give them a great offense. But we've seen teams with 2 good receivers not make the playoffs or not do much of anything. You got Addison and Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. They were one and done. You got Higgins and you have Jamar Chase in Cincinnati. They care more about offense and securing the situation for Dak Prescott than they did about their defense. And when you look at the NFL and the teams and the trajectory of teams, Patty had 2 good receivers at one good time. And it didn't matter. He still made the Super Bowl strictly on the basis of the Spagnola defense and Patty knowing how to beat certain teams. Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, we got 2 good receivers, but we didn't win a Super Bowl until we made it about running and defense. We had one of the people are saying it. That was a historically great defense that we had last year. You have never seen a top 10 all-time quarterback be flustered in a Super Bowl other than Peyton Manning and what we saw from Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. And that's because of defense. So now they bring in Kenny Clark and they think Kenny Clark is going to make a difference. Kenny Clark has been the anchor for Green Bay for the longest time, and everybody moves the ball on Green Bay. Everybody. Look at the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions were on a trajectory where they were scoring 40-something points a game. Because they score 40 on Green Bay, or at least 30 plus. So you bring Kenny Clark in, what's the difference? I mean, when you have here's the thing, when you have that edge rusher Prince, you notice because you're a Giants fan. So as a Giants fan, I could throw two names at you, and you're gonna say, I can actually throw three names at you. And you're gonna say, yep, they helped secure a championship for me. Lawrence Taylor, Justin Tuck, and Michael Strahan. The edge rusher is one of the most dominating, debilitating positions in the NFL. It's a position where these guys can literally wreck a game. They can give you a play that you need. When we beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, Tom Brady and Nick Foles were going neck and neck, throwing the ball, throwing the ball. We won not because Nick Foles kept up with Tom Brady. We won because Brandon Graham had two sack fumbles on the GOAT. And that's what happens. It's the edge rusher sometimes that makes the difference. When you look at the Rams when they won the championship, even though he was a defensive tackle, they moved him across the line, Aaron Donald. So for them to take Kenny Clark, I think that Jerry is, I don't know if he has Alzheimer's or he's getting old, but Jerry's just too caught up in himself. When I look at that whole situation, the fact that he had that interview with Stephen A and he was being disrespectful to the thing is this is like being disrespectful to one of the greatest agents in the NBA. This guy is the agent from a lot of great players. He is the most notable name agent in the NFL.
He got
And he
Deshaun.
act like
He got Deshaun that bread.
yeah. And now you look at that situation, and Jerry act like he didn't even know the dude. And that I know you're a billionaire, Jerry, but listen, at the end of the day, people don't come to watch the Cowboys for you. They come to watch the Cowboys for Micah, for Dak, for Ezekiel Elliott when you had him. You know, what I mean, now you guys are. I generally believe that the Cowboys is a 4-12 team. They're going to be in their games, but people are going to be able to. They're not going to be getting a lot of sacks this year, and people will pass on them because even when you have great corners, you have to remember. I don't care who you are. There's only been one corner in the history of the NFL that he can guard a person for like 10 seconds, and that's Prime. Not even Revis. Listen, if they said if you gave Revis more than 10 seconds, he would people would get open on him. Prime was a different story. Prime, it didn't matter how much time. You're not throwing the ball on Prime unless you had Jerry Rice or Randy Moss. That's it. And so you got all these good corners, but guess what? Jalen Hurts is gonna have a whole lot of time to throw the ball on Thursday night.
Speaking of that, man, let's move on to NFL put out their top 100 list, man, and Saquon was number one, man. But let me just go through the top 10 for you real quick, man. We had Patrick Surtain 2, PS2, you know, we had Justin Jefferson, Miles Garrett at 8, Derrick Henry 7, Joe Burrow 6, P. Mahomes 5, Jamar Chase 4, Josh Allen 3, Lamar 2, Saquon 1. I think, you know what I noticed with this list? I think Saquon should be number one, but I noticed with this list, they go off of who had a great statistical year the year before, which is interesting, right? Where the NBA just goes off of who the best player is. Because the example you gave about Patrick Mahomes, where he struggled in the Super Bowl, his stats have kind of been down the last 2, 3 seasons, right? Everybody knows he's the best player in the league, right? It's just
Mhm.
it's just interesting how NFL is more recency bias. And this is no shade to Saquon, obviously, bro. Had a historic season, won the Super Bowl. He did everything. But I noticed they did the same thing with Tyreek that one year when he had the 2,000 yards, and he ended up being terrible the next year. So what do you think about how the top 100 is kind of laid out?
Well, one thing we got to remember: it's not NFL that picks it; it's the players.
Okay.
So the players voted in. So when they voted, when Aaron Donald kept getting number one, the players picked it because they knew Aaron Donald would constantly see a double team. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I think that You can argue. You can argue Josh Allen over Patty. You can argue a little bit in that argument. And the only reason why I say that is that at least Josh has a good record versus Patty in the regular season. We know we go postseason, but to see that they had Saquon 1, Lamar 2, Josh Allen 3. I mean, it was a whole bunch of quarterbacks 1 through 6, and Patty was number 5, and Joe was number 6. Why is Joe number 6? Because of the stats he put out this year. He's a top 10 player. I mean, some of the guys we have on there, like even now when we look at the list, you can't really even say that it's recency bias because Trey Hendrickson was not even in the top 10, and Trey Hendrickson had more sacks
Yeah,
than Myles Garrett last year.
and they got Jamar Chase over Mahomes at 4, which is interesting.
Yeah, and that doesn't make any sense. If I was doing my top 5, Prince, and this is just my opinion, I would put Patty number 3 right now. Recency bias, I would have him 3. The only reason why I would have him 3 is from this perspective. What Josh Allen did last year was Patrick Mahomes-esque. He did not have a clear-cut number 1 receiver. His number 1 receiver was a guy named Khalil Shakur. That's a nobody. And so I would give him 2. I would give Patty 3. I would give Lamar 5. Yeah, Lamar had a great statistical season, but Lamar does this every single year. What Josh did last year was something different. He actually got an MVP. He actually beat Patrick Mahomes with a lesser team. He did lose to him in the playoffs, but he beat him. Whenever we look at those games between them two, it's always like a one-score game. So you can't even really be like, okay, Patty is like neck and shoulders. And the only reason why I say that is if we're going to make that assessment, then I can make an Jalen has outplayed Patty 3 of the 4 times they played each other. But we can't do that because Patty has 3 championships. So I look at it from a perspective of Patrick Mahomes is the 3rd best player. I think that Saquon does deserve to be number 1. We've seen Saquon from Penn State. We've seen Saquon from the Giants. I remember when the Giants went to the postseason when Dayball first got there, and their offense was based on Saquon and Daniel Jones doing that read option, and they made the playoffs. But Saquon was the main bullet in the gun. He was that nuclear weapon. And when you see Philly, we ran through the NFL because of Saquon Barkley. Saquon
100%.
Barkley, right? We probably, as you said last year, that one girlfriend, that one divorce where you realize you left the wrong person. So I think Saquon deserves to be number 1. I think Josh deserves to be 2. I can never put Patty at 5. I just don't see 5 people in the NFL better than Patrick Mahomes. Even if Patrick